I have, certainly reached the age where the ordinary maladies of age have begun to gather, and I was conscious of that fact. So I'd begun to think about mortality, my own, and in a more abstract way, the idea of it. And the coincidence that occurred that really started this book was the fact that I was going in for very routine cataract surgery, a 15-minute procedure that in my case just utterly changed my life, because I was terribly nearsighted from the time I was like 5 years old, and wore very thick glasses and then contact lens and all that, so that the idea of having a new lens put in made me see better than I'd seen since ever. So I was going through that procedure. At the same time, I knew that my mother in Iowa, I live in Boston, so I was in Boston, was in the hospital, and that my brother had come up from St. Louis to be with her. And I was leaving my apartment in Boston to get on this subway to go to the surgery. And the phone rang, and it was my brother, and he said, I'm about to go into the hospital here. I got a call that Mom's not doing well at all. And I said, well, he knew I was going for surgery, and I said, well, when I get back, let's talk on the phone and sort of see what the story is. When I did get back from the surgery, a couple of hours, 2.5 hours after that, I called him, and he said that she had died. And as I reconstructed time, it seemed pretty clear to me that she had died while I was having the surgery. She in her hospital bed in Newton, Iowa, me and mine in Boston, and the coincidence of that and the metaphor that it suggested, that I was seeing the world clearly in the hour my mother died, just struck me very profoundly. And so I knew I had to write something about it, and I did. I wrote an essay about it that sort of looked at these two lives, mine in my very benign procedure, hers in her final moments. And that suggested the next essay and the next essay. And so I was writing this material as discrete essays, always with the idea that I would eventually string it together, as I've described it to Don, as a single unbroken narrative, something that somehow dealt with these subjects of this dual calendar of my mortality, my mother's death, and all that it sort of began to stir in me, that it would be a book-length narrative. But that form really resisted itself to me. I couldn't find a way to make it work as a form. And I was showing it to friends, and they were saying, the essays are terrific. And I showed it to a Bennington colleague, Philip Lopate. And Philip said, what you can do in the essay, the personal essay, is to have your narrator be what he called a consciousness, which suggested to me the idea of an intelligence, less personalized, but more pervading through the atmosphere of the essay, the work, the life. But if you want a sustained book-length narrative, that consciousness has to become a character. It has to step forward. It has to become three-dimensional. It has to be sort of the hook that the narrative attaches itself to, that readers attach themselves to. And as I thought about that, I thought, well, he's right. But I don't want to be a character. I want to stay that consciousness. I want to be sort of more the guiding ruminative intelligence of the narrative, but I don't want to dominate it in a way that I thought I would need to. So the decision to make them a connected series of essays came from that distinction. And then I began to think of the book as the non-fictional equivalent of a novel in stories, connected stories. And that's kind of what I settled on. That's really what the book resulted in.